Hey Disney Pixar peeps, welcome to TheBinger. Did you ever think about the fact that Disney and Pixar movies are released all over the world, and what that means for the people behind the movie? While the themes are often universal, certain visual gags and jokes are not. Today, we're going to break down the most creative and confusing changes animators have made for international audiences. First things first, for those of you that don't obsess over Disney and Pixar, it's helpful to know that the movie studios for both are in California. That's important because it means the movies are often written in America by English speakers. The animation teams do hail from a variety of backgrounds and cultures, but it's still Hollywood. The English language version of the script is therefore written first. In terms of this video, it means we recognize that Disney Pixar worlds are designed for English speakers' point of view. Background signs, books, and other such details are written in English by default. It's usually not too much of a challenge for the translation team to swap those out for international releases. Oh My Disney did a video comparing different language versions to illustrate this. Take this scene from Ratatouille, for instance. When he opens the book, you can see that they just swapped the English writing for French. They even kept the same cursive writing so that the style is intact. The same goes for Ellie's adventure book in Up. The team put the title in many languages, again, keeping it in the handmade childish style. In this way, Disney and Pixar handle international releases like other companies, but with a nice attention to detail. Unfortunately, everything can't translate so perfectly. Disney and Pixar often use a lot of visual gags in their movies. Among these are jokes that revolve around letters falling into place a specific way. As you can guess, it would take way too much time to make a joke based on spelling work for many different languages, especially those languages that use characters instead of letters. One example is Randall's cupcakes in Monsters University. In all versions of the movie, he bakes exactly 7 cupcakes. The English version has it so each one has a letter on them, and they spell out "Be My Pal." Later on, Mike Wazowski bumps into Randall, sending him face first into the cupcakes. 4 end up on his face, the letters rearranged to spell lame. The joke depends on the fact that 4 letters in Be My Pal also spell lame, a feat that would be hard to accomplish in other languages. Pixar's solution? All international versions just had smiley faces on the cupcakes. That kept the original intention of the scene. Randall's cupcakes still appear nice and still end up on his face. Only now the wordplay joke is lost. A necessary sacrifice for translation. Randall's smiley-faced cupcakes are actually part of a trend. There's a few times when Disney and Pixar would rather use a picture than translate certain written articles. Usually it's because the objects in question have some kind of emotional value. They mean more than a simple stop sign, so slapping on a different language and calling it a day doesn't really work. Take, for instance, the money jar in Up. During the film's iconic beginning, Ellie and Carl keep a money jar. The goal is to save for Paradise Falls, and they keep several pictures of the falls around in order to motivate themselves. In the English version of Up, the money jar has Paradise Falls written on it. In every other language, there's a hand-drawn picture of Paradise Falls. Perhaps the team thought that the picture would represent the meaning more than words. After all, they had no qualms about translating the adventure book. A similar change happens in Monsters University during the Scare Games. The US version has the word Scare Games written on the banner. Every other country gets Greek letters on the banner, in keeping with the college setting. It's often said that pictures are worth 1,000 words, so maybe they're more symbolic than a literal translation, or maybe it just equals less work for the translation team. One last note on languages. Sometimes the animators behind the movies will go the extra mile to think like non-English speakers. You might not think about it because it rarely comes up in everyday life, but different languages are read in different ways. So while we accept movie characters reading from left to right, audiences in other countries would find that weird. Fortunately, the Disney Pixar team has everyone covered. We can see this during Inside Out. When they take the shortcut, Bing Bong reads a sign that says danger and points along with his trunk. In different language versions, his trunk movement is actually changed to go along with whatever language he's speaking. It's a small gesture that most of us probably never would have noticed, but the animators thought of it, and they deserve some credit. That's enough language talk. After all, the differences between people of the world extend far beyond how we speak. Every culture also has its own set of beliefs. Don't worry, this isn't about to get political. We're talking about what people like to eat. Inside Out has a funny change based on food. One scene shows a little Riley refusing to eat broccoli. It, like the rest of the movie, is meant to be relatable. What parent hasn't struggled to get their little ones to eat their veggies? And what kid in the audience wouldn't instantly feel for little Riley? Japanese parents and kids, apparently. Children in Japan apparently happily eat their greens, so the scene needed an adjustment. In the Japanese version of Inside Out, Riley's father is instead forcing her to eat green peppers. Because, parents are always trying to give toddlers peppers. Still, it's something Japanese kids hate, so it made the scene work for them. Just to repeat, this change was only made for Japan. Every other version of the film featured broccoli. That's some great customer service, changing a movie for one audience like that. Okay, I lied. It's time to get political, because Pixar made one change in Inside Out that we just cannot stand. They bowed to one particular audience and lost something in the process. They threw away the amazing gift that is hockey. As you might remember, hockey is kind of a big deal in Inside Out. It formed a lot of Riley's identity, both tying her to her old friends and eventually helping her make new ones. It also seems to connect her and her father, who is also a fan of the sport. We know this because during the dinner argument, the father's inner emotions are caught watching hockey instead of paying attention to Riley. However, Pixar thought that hockey might not translate in certain countries. So for those audiences, Pixar swapped out hockey for soccer, or football as it's called in those parts of the world. The parts where chasing a ball around is more exciting than hockey for some reason. However, in a cool gesture, some of the countries refused the change. They chose to watch the original hockey version, recognizing that it's more popular where Riley is from. So a nice awareness from both Pixar and the international distributors. Fuzzy feelings all around. Alright, so a lot of these changes have been background details, signs, cupcakes, and the like, or bits that go by so quickly like the hockey joke that it's impressive that Pixar even thought to change them at all. So let's take a look at something more essential, a moment that's so American it wouldn't have made sense to leave it in the international version. In Toy Story 2, Woody ends up being separated from the other toys. Well, that happens in pretty much every Toy Story movie. This time around, however, Buzz is left to lead the search. He gives a rallying speech to Andy's toys, complete with an American flag behind him and the national anthem in the background. It's meant to be extra, a random display of patriotism. But anybody who doesn't live in America probably wouldn't get the joke. How can you understand American patriotism if you don't live in America? So for every release outside of the US, Pixar swapped Buzz's flag out for a globe. The national anthem is also replaced by a generic rousing song called One World Anthem. It was a necessary change. Still, you have to wonder why Andy had a globe in his room. Is that really a thing most kids just have? Anyway, we've talked about Pixar enough. What about Disney? The original animation studio has made plenty of changes of its own for international audiences. Like Pixar, there are the occasional translations and altered visual gags. However, Disney also has one strange habit that Pixar doesn't. Disney animators like to change characters entirely. Take a look at Planes. Yes, Planes. You're forgiven if you forgot that movie exists, most of us have. Planes is a spin-off of Pixar's Cars and created by the creator of Cars, but it's a Disney animation project. It tells the story of a young crop duster with dreams of racing. When he makes it into the big race, he encounters many other planes. One of these is Rochelle, a lovely Canadian plane. For some reason, Disney decided that Rochelle needed to change based on the audience. She has 11 other versions, each one with a new name and paint job. She's Carolina, Tanya, Heidi, or something else depending on where you watched the movie. It's not clear why Disney felt they needed to change this plane so many times, but then again, it's unclear why Disney even made planes in the first place. Zootopia does a similar thing with a certain animal. There's a pair of news anchors in Zootopia, and one of them is kind of a large cat and the other one is a moose. Or at least, he's a moose in North America and France. In China, he's a panda. Australia features him as a koala. Britain got a corgi, and Brazil's version has him as a jaguar. But most interesting is Japan, where audiences were treated to a tanuki. A tanuki, or raccoon dog, is a species that holds a special place in Japanese mythology for being very endowed. But not in the way that you're thinking, just Google it. Like with planes, we don't really know why Disney did this, but at least with this example we can guess. It was probably a fun little Easter egg to give each country its own animal, something recognizable to that specific region. Or maybe, like the soccer scene in Inside Out, the localization team wanted to give audiences a more relatable reference. That brings us to our last one, and it's a doozy. Vanellope von Schweetz of WreckIt Ralph fame comes from Sugar Rush. It's an arcade game that plays like Mario Kart, but with candy-themed children instead of Nintendo characters. What you might not know is that one of the children was changed entirely for Japan. The little girl with the yellow bow is named Minty Zaki. Her name pays homage to Hayao Miyazaki, a famous Japanese director known for animated classics like Spirited Away. However, in his home country of Japan, Minty Zaki is not named after him. Instead, she's called Minty Sakura, after cherry blossoms. She even gets a whole new look with more pink to fit the theme. It's a strange change to make, especially in the place where the person the character references lives. Maybe there's some kind of cultural thing in Japan against such references, or maybe Miyazaki himself didn't approve. Whatever it is, it marks another time Disney changed something specifically for Japan. That's some dedication for an audience who probably prefers their own country's animation anyway. Then again, that's what Disney and this whole video is about. Disney and Pixar didn't have to change the scenes and characters to fit other cultures. They could have just added subtitles and brought in the cash. But that would go against the spirit of understanding and the reputation of quality that these studios are known for. These changes might seem minor or even downright silly to English speakers, but they're probably greatly appreciated around the world. And that makes it all worth it. It is a small world after all. Which change completely shocked you the most? Did any come across as completely unnecessary or mind-blowingly awesome? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to TheBinger for in-depth looks at your favorite movies.